So this story here is from a couple weeks ago, but I had to share it with you because it is absolutely mind-blowing. Texas Death Star law will eliminate mandatory water breaks for construction workers. Now, to be clear, it's not just construction workers. It's everybody who works outside, even in triple-digit heat. It's been dubbed the Death Star law by opponents of the bill, and you're about to see why. A new state law in Texas will soon invalidate mandatory water breaks for construction workers. It's part of a new bill that empowers the state to override local governments in certain circumstances. Critics of the bill have called it overreach, while supporters of it said it will make it easier to do business in the state. The new law, called the Texas Regulatory Consistency Act, oh, it sounds so official, doesn't it? Has been signed by Governor Greg Abbott and takes effect on September 1st. However, the triple-digit heat that's been plaguing the Lone Star State has prompted concerns about how dangerous the bill could potentially be for workers. So let me explain this a little bit to you. What happens in a state like Texas is you have all these like cities and localities with their own governments. And in many of these cities, they are much more blue than the overall state of red Texas. And so they do some health regulations and safety regulations and labor regulations. And one of the things in a lot of these places, Dallas in particular, others too, is they say every 4 hours of working outside need to be granted at least a 10-minute water break. Mandatory water break by law. So it's like, hey, let's make sure you don't overheat out there. Let's make sure you don't get heat stroke. Let's make sure you're safe. We're going to have mandatory water breaks. It's the most basic thing of all time. Well, this bill signed by Governor Abbott says the state can intervene and say, actually, we are nullifying local laws and we're eliminating, we're getting rid of local laws, and now there is no right to a water break, no matter how long you're outside in triple-digit heat. This is astonishing. By the way, this is the future the far right wants. They want you to be a total puppet to your corporate overlords. The law would eliminate municipal codes in Dallas and throughout Texas that are stricter than state law. Currently, some cities like Dallas mandate construction workers take a 10-minute break every 4 hours. With the new law, that would disappear. Opponents of the bill said this takes away the city or town's right to protect its workers, calling it the Death Star bill, which is a reference to the space station in the Star Wars franchise. One supporter of the bill said it would help small businesses that don't have the staff to keep track of different laws in different cities. Wow. One of my members has 19 active job sites in different jurisdictions, and having that consistency from job site to job site will be really, really critical. Wow. What a ridiculous argument to make. So, hey, he can't even keep up with it. In Dallas, it might be a 10-minute break. In Houston, it might be a 25-minute break. How's he supposed to keep up with all of it? Let's just ban the water breaks completely. He thinks it will make things easier for employers, cutting down on confusion and making things more consistent across the board. Yeah, consistently bad. Quote, Texas leads the nation in construction worker fatalities. Oh, what do you know? Particularly those in overexposure to heat. Ryan Pollock with IBEW Local Union 520, a labor union representing electrical workers in Austin, Texas, said. Officials said the heat killed at least 13 people in Texas last week. The new law would revert to OSHA's water break requirements. OSHA, the federal agency which oversees worker safety in the U.S., doesn't have minimum water break requirements for workers because it depends on one's environment and health. Again, this is just one impact of the new bill in Texas. The law also includes powers for the state to override local laws in agriculture, natural resources, and property, to name a few, also in labor. Michigan has a similar law that specifically prevents cities from having minimum wages or benefits higher than the state level, and Florida is reportedly considering a similar law that would give the state more power over a city. So again, let me explain this in no uncertain terms. You have a red state. You have blue cities within that red state. The blue cities like to be more progressive than the state overall. This is the red states, plural, saying, what if we told you you can't do local regulations? You can't do a higher local minimum wage. You can't do a law locally that you have to get a week paid vacation time or whatever. They are nullifying any sort of progressive ideas, any sort of pro-worker, pro-labor ideas, and they're doing it at the state level. Now, the ultimate irony of this is what? This flies directly in the face of what they tell us conservative values are. Conservative values, they say, hey, we believe in federalism. We believe there should be multiple layers of government, and you leave as much autonomy as possible at the level closest to the individual. That's why in a lot of debates, oh, states' rights, states' rights, states' rights. And obviously, when it comes to localities, it's like, hey, the locality should have rights also. Get as close to the individual as possible, and that's where you govern. But here, they're saying, no, we don't want to do that. Why? Because we're actually far-right ideologues, and we want to enforce our own ideology on people, so we will override and overrule local laws that are too progressive for our taste. It will rule by fiat at the state level. Will be authoritarian at the state level. And look at the results. Some places where they say, you can't have a higher minimum wage. We are banning your higher minimum wage. You can't have water breaks. We are banning your water breaks. You can't have that safety regulation or this safety regulation. We're getting rid of your safety regulation. Honestly, it makes it impossible to support any kind of Republican. It does. Because if this is what they're doing, they are actively trying to make the situation worse for regular people. That's not debatable. That's not a question. By the way, there was another article I read that had the overall numbers. I think since 2010, it's like 42 people or something who've died from heat stroke in Texas from working outside. And I definitely suspect that number is going to go up. So this has real world consequences. They would rather have people not be autonomous individuals who are workers. They'd rather have you basically as a serf, basically as an indentured servant, basically with no rights whatsoever except that your employer gives you. This is their ideology. So you take that information and do with it what you will. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.